There's something that most people who come into my world don't want to admit. It's not that they're lazy or unmotivated. It's not even oftentimes that they don't know what to do to move their situation forwards. It's that they can't stay consistent. One good week, two bad ones, all in for a month, then they disappear. And it's not just annoying, it's actually dangerous because that inconsistency doesn't just slow progress, it erodes trust with yourself. It teaches your nervous system that you're the sort of person that doesn't stick to their word. You're the sort of person that doesn't follow through what they said they're going to do. And over time, that identity actually becomes baked into your subconscious. You stop setting goals as aggressively, you start toe dipping, and essentially you lower your standards. And you settle for a version who's essentially constantly just trying to get you back to the level that you should have sustained originally. So today I'm going to show you how to change all of that. And I've built this incredible mind map, which I'm about to show you, which breaks down exactly why consistency slips and how to fix the root problem of it all. Not with surface level hacks like stack small wins, but with real change and structure, which allows you to operate differently. Let's dive in. When was the last time that you were consistent with the steps that you had to do, the sleep, the hours of sleep in which you had to get, the food in which you had to eat, and indeed the quantities in which we're going to move you forward, strength trained, and got your steps in? Now, before we get into the 5-step consistency formula, which I'm going to show you in a minute, and honestly, it's going to be a game changer for you. It's going to absolutely blow your mind if you allow it to and really implement the teachings here. However, I just want to ask you a couple of questions beforehand and just be honest with me, be honest with yourself. When was the last time that you had a perfect day whereby you nailed your nutrition, you got your steps in, you got your sleep in, you nailed the gym, and everything just kind of clicked? Can you remember the last time that happened, or a day in which it happened? Just, there's no trick answers or questions here. It's just a case of me getting you to think differently. Because the answer to that is probably yes. Whatever plan you're following, whether it's via a guided plan from a coach or whether it's a self-made plan on your own, whatever it is that you're following, I bet that you can probably remember a day where you were quote unquote perfect and you did what you need to do to move your situation forward with your sleep, your food, your nutrition, your training, etc., etc. Okay? If you cannot at least string one day right in a row, then essentially you got a bigger problem than this YouTube video. Okay, most people can grit their teeth and willpower their way through a day, right? Cool. So most of you, if not all of you, should have said yes, I can remember a day in which I nailed things, right? Okay, cool. Can you remember the last time that you got 7 days straight worth of consistency? And by the way, that does mean weekends. And what I mean by that is you nailed your plan 7 days of the week. You got your sleep in, you got the steps in, you nailed your training, you got the nutrition in, and we didn't mess up on weekends. Pause. Let's have a little think about that. Now, some of you will be saying, yep, I can remember the last time that I cultivated 7 days worth of consistency in a row. And others of you will be like, shit, if I'm honest with myself, I'm pretty good Monday through to Thursday, Friday, and then the weekend's a bit of a mess, which is honestly for another video, which I can go over later. But now a few of you are going to start to drop off and be like, yeah, no, not really. And if I was to extrapolate this whole framework further and say, okay, cool. When was the last time that you were consistent for a 30-day period? You nailed everything with your training, your nutrition, your steps, your sleep, your stress management. The answer is probably going to be never, or I cannot remember the last time. And if we conceptualize that you understand what to do, and you understand that when you do it, you get good results, or at the very least, we do things which are going to move your situation forward in terms of the way you look and the way that you feel, the real lack of or the gap between where you are right now to where you want to be isn't in a new plan, isn't in a new strategy, it's in a lack of consistency. You've heard it all before. Consistency is the key to success. And whilst that's so true, if we can't be consistent and we can't actually do that, then essentially we're not going to get very far, because your body doesn't change in one day. It doesn't change in a few days. It doesn't change in a week. The way in which your physique looks now is a direct representation of the standards, the habits, the routines in which you've been displaying over the course of time. And therefore, if you want better outcomes, well, we have to have better consistency. And this video is literally going to teach you how in under 10 minutes. So let's dive straight in. So we've got different kind of frameworks and different pyramids branching off of this consistency paradigm. So let's go ahead and start with this guy. And what we're going to do is we're just going to take away one card at a time. Okay. And what we're going to do is take away this card and we're going to go with identity. And this is something in which I'm willing to die on. This is a hill in which I'm willing to die on, okay? If you don't see yourself as the lean person, if you don't see yourself as a strong person, if you haven't actually developed the subconscious needed to really step into the shoes of the person which you want to be 365, then essentially all you'll do is flip-flop from plan to plan because you haven't actually okayed it in your mind as to who you want to be and why. You haven't actually thought about the identity of the lean person. Where do they shop? Where do they act? What decisions do they make? If you constantly see yourself as someone struggling with fat loss, if you constantly see yourself as someone who is skinny, weak, and can't put on muscle mass, then I don't care what plan you follow. I don't care what nutrition plan you're going to do. I don't care about the latest supplement. You will always revert back to the way in which your self-image sees you. And until we develop that subconscious reprogramming of having that massive identity shift and you accepting that you're on a one-way trip to a leaner, fitter, faster, stronger physique, then like I say, it doesn't matter about progress because you're always going to revert back to how your brain actually sees you. Now, you might look at that and be like, okay, Sharif, well, how do I actually get my brain to see me any differently? And the way is by constant repetition, constantly doing the things in which you potentially don't want to do or you feel like a bit of an imposter doing, which is going to allow you to step into the shoes of that lean person. Because guess what? The more that you nail those meals, those high protein meals, the whole foods, the more that you do actually progressively overload in the gym and get there even on the days in which you really rather wouldn't, the more that you actually stop Netflix, get to bed on time and get your 8 hours worth of sleep. Well, guess what? You're developing the habits, the standards, the routines of a lean person, and you're developing a new identity. The more we do that, the more we rebuild neurological pathways in our brain that tell us that, hey, this is who we are now. This is what we do. All right? So if you do not develop a new identity in your mind, then you will never ever cultivate the long-lasting consistency you need for results. Let me give another example. When you go to a party and you offer someone a cigarette, or someone offers you a cigarette and you don't smoke, do you say, oh, I'm really trying not to smoke right now? Or do you say, oh no, thanks, I'm not a smoker? That second one has a strong identity of not being a smoker, and therefore even entertaining the possibility of a cigarette makes no sense whatsoever. However, the first person is toe dipping. They kind of really want to not smoke, but they kind of do, and they don't have that identity. Let's say, for instance, you went round to a vegetarian person for dinner, or a vegan person for dinner, right? Would you bring round a ribeye steak? No, of course not, because not only would it be highly offensive to them, but they don't eat meat. They have the identity of someone who doesn't eat meat, full stop, finish. It doesn't even cross their mind. So you need to develop the identity of someone who is already in shape. Then you just follow the actions, which are already in your mind and are already embedded in that subconscious of someone who is now lean. Now, let me give an example. My man Joel here, right? He had the identity of someone who couldn't get into shape, okay? Could not get into shape. Right? Because doctors had told him that he had a slow metabolism. Okay? He was tarnished with that label. He was tarnished with the label of someone who would always struggle to lose body fat because of his slow metabolism, because of thyroid issues. Okay? When I did a little bit of digging and I realized, hey, the plan he was following was completely whack, and actually we just tweaked one or two things. This is 6 weeks only worth of progress. Okay, 6 weeks. His belly is gone. The inflammation is down. He lost about a stone of body weight. That is absolutely wild. And he developed the identity of a lean person, which is why he understands exactly what to do now for life when it comes to body recomposition. Hopefully you're still with me, team. Right, let's move on to the next little framework. So this one just here. This is now emotional leaks. So understanding what your emotional leaks actually are. And here's what I mean by that. If we are constantly stress eating, if we are constantly emotional eating, if we are constantly using food to help us run away from a certain emotion or help us to move towards a certain emotion, be that away from boredom and towards happiness, away from pain and towards pleasure, whatever it may be, then it's always going to have a crux. It's always going to have a hold on you, and you're never going to get to where you want to go. And guess what? Being in shape requires you to eat certain things at certain times which you'd really rather not do so. Being in shape requires you to not eat certain things at certain times which you really rather would. And if you don't have a handle on the emotional leaks going on in your life in which you use with food, or saying no to exercise and steps in which you'd on times in which you'd really rather, not do it, and actually you need to do the things you said you were going to do long after the feelings of wanting to do so have now left, you will also be tied to this emotional bucket in which food essentially has over you. And we need to get really clear on what your emotional leaks are. And the way in which we do that is like, all right, think about the times of the day, think about the times of the week in whereby you might mess up when it comes to your food choices. Where's it going to be? Let me give an example for me. Back in the day when I used to be a one-to-one personal trainer, I would do my clients and I would work Monday through to sort of Saturday midday, non-stop, back to back, bosh, right? So the end of my working week was Saturday afternoon, right? I would then go to the local supermarket, pick up some food for me and my wife, and I would go past the bakery section. And I would always say to myself that, hey, I can have a cookie. I deserve one cookie. However, they didn't serve cookies as individual cookies. I'm not talking about a little cookie, right? They're like 350 calories, absolutely amazing, freshly baked, forget it. Anyway, these cookies came in a pack of 5, right? Now, for me at the time, I would always say to myself that I can ration these things and I don't have to have all 5 at once. Guess what? It never happens. And I ate all of them at once every single time, which therefore led to, fuck it, let's just get a takeaway and a bottle of wine at dinner, which therefore led to, well, I've messed it up now, let's do whatever on Sunday, which therefore led to, oh shit, I'm only making progress 5 days out of 7 and I'm spinning my wheels, getting nowhere fast. So my emotional leak was the fact that I was using the cookies, using the bakery as a bit of relaxation, which then led into my perfectionist mindset of like, you weren't perfect, Sharif, so therefore you've blown it, you may as well start again on Monday. And actually, that caused me to not get very fast and put myself in a very frustrating situation. It wasn't until I backed off and I realized that this was an emotional leak for me, and I was using food to basically quell a feeling which I wanted to move towards, which was relaxation and stress relief after a hard week, that I therefore realized that I need to do something a lot differently. All right. And then obviously it works. But if you're not aware of your emotional leaks, then you'll never cultivate consistency, or you will continue to cultivate inconsistency, which will make sure that you never get the result in which you now want. Now, this is my client, Lauren. As you can see, like, look at her waist. Absolutely wild, like compared to here to there. And she's an absolute operator. However, when we first started working together, obviously, you know, like we all do, we have emotional leaks. We have emotional challenges when it comes to food, be that stress eating. She has a very high stressful job. She's a leader of a team at work, and therefore does long hours, high pressure job, high stress job. And therefore oftentimes, like we all did, use, you know, food and booze for you know, crux and what have you, right? To kind of move you away from a certain feeling or towards another one. Once we kind of established that, realized that, optimize her food choices, optimize her food environment, which we're going to be talking about next, then we cultivated more consistency. And she's been more consistent now as a new mum than ever before. And as you can see, her physique has absolutely changed shape drastically. And that doesn't happen because she nailed it for a day or nailed it for a couple of days. We've now got her a plan, and she understands what to do to be consistent for long enough that her physique changes drastically. And as you can see, the proof is very much in the pudding. Cool. So next one we're going to now look at is, let's remove this card right here. I love this one, and that is compassion and consequences. Okay, you have to have both when it comes to your fitness journey. Now, here's what I mean by that, right? You see a lot of people on social media say things like, you have to love yourself and you have to have compassion for where you are right now, and you can't shame and hate your way to a body you want to love. And by the way, I couldn't agree more. However, what they don't often then think about is actually the consequences off the back of it, as well as the compassion needed in a fitness and fat loss journey. Reason being is because you're not going to be perfect. And if you don't have compassion for yourself, then it's going to be pretty hard. However, you do have to give yourself consequences. You do also have to pat yourself on the back and realize that, hey, do you know what? I said I wanted to do 1, 2, 3 things. I said I wanted to lose the 5 kilos, the 10 kilos. It's now been 4 months. I've not moved myself forward. And actually, I've got plenty of compassion, and I'm telling myself stories about how I'm busy and I love myself, and, you know, like I'm trying my best and all the rest of it. But actually, I'm not moving myself forward. So you have to know when to give yourself a pat on the back and to hold your own hand. And you also have to know when to pull yourself up in your own bullshit and be like, actually, I haven't moved myself forward, and this needs consequences. Okay. And again, once you're clear on those two things, once you have those consequences and once you have that compassion for yourself, it's like, I have compassion for where I am right now, but I also know that physically I want to move away from the situation. I do want to change. I want to become the best version of myself. And the consequences of me not following through on the things I said I was going to do, or the actions in which I've signed up for, are essentially going to be me staying in a position where I'm not happy, I'm unconfident, I'm over fat, under muscled, and unhealthy. So you have to have good clarity on both. Now, this is Kyna, and we lost 50 pounds or 25 kilos from our UK lot over the course of a year. She didn't even hit the gym inside 23 Lean, right? We literally got this ridiculous transformation, as you can see here, from the comfort of her own home, which is absolutely wild. But guess what? She had compassion for herself when she messed up and maybe missed a workout or went out for some drinks with friends, because everyone's human and, you know, you're not going to be perfect, and that's okay. But she also understood the consequence of not moving herself forward on a week-to-week basis and staying stuck. And that's something which she wasn't prepared to do, which is why we've got this ridiculous transformation, as you can now see here. All right. Absolutely incredible stuff. Now, I actually missed one, but it's cool. I'm going to go back to it and just put it a different part. So this next card, right, is environmental design. It is super, super, super hard to be consistent if all around you is cookies, cakes, chocolate, ice cream. It is super hard to stay consistent if you're listening to a peer group who tells you that you're fine the way that you are, that you don't need to hit the gym, and actually you look great. It is very hard to be consistent if literally all the external cues around you are geared towards you being fat, lazy, unhealthy, and out of shape. Guess what? You need people, you need things, you need to orchestrate, and you need to organize your environment so that the move you want to make is the easy one, and the move in which you don't want to make is the harder one. Let me give you an example, and this comes straight out of James Clear's Atomic Habits. So he would say that actually, in order to move the situation forward and to do it effortlessly, it is all about the systems in which you have versus the discipline in which you might have for one day or not, right? Discipline is transient, it is fleeting, it is sometimes there, it's sometimes not, okay? If we are relying on an emotion, then it's going to be really hard, again, to cultivate long-term consistency, because you can grit your teeth for a day, you can grit your teeth for a couple of days. But actually, if we don't have that long-term consistency, which we both agreed upon is needed for long-term results, then it's going to be very hard to do. So you can either wake up each day and willpower and discipline your way to freedom, or you can organize your environment as such that it's easy. You know, just think about it. If your fridge was full of high protein yogurts, of protein bars, of fruits, so that when you do get the munchies at 4 p.m., do we go for the Quavers and the Monster Munch and the Twix bars and what have you, or do you actually go for the protein bars and something which is actually going to move you forward towards your goal? Because all it therefore takes is a stressful situation with your boss, your partner, your mum, your dad, whoever it may be, and then bang, we're into that emotional eating again. And it's so easy to fall into emotional eating and have those emotional leaks when your environment is not set up for success. So I need you to have a bit of an audit. Are the people, are the things around you in line with what you actually want to achieve? Or are you just willpowering your way to get the result and wondering why you're not there yet? Have a little think about that, because environment is the invisible hand which shapes success. I truly believe that. And again, if we now go down, get rid of this card. This is my man, Chris. Now, Chris is a busy teacher. And the funny thing about Chris is he was literally going to the gym 7 days per week, some weeks, before we jumped on board with 23 Lean. And now he goes about 3 to 4. So he is training less here compared to there. But he is leaner, fitter, sharper. His waist has come in massively. We're starting to see obliques and abs. He's down 10 kilos. And it's largely because we've orchestrated his environment so that the easy option is the one in which he takes. So that when he goes to school, on the way back, he's got his kit bag ready. He's got everything set up, so he goes to the gym straight away. He comes home and he knows what his meal prep is, because either we've outsourced that to a meal prep company, or he's already done the due diligence, making sure that the right foods are in the fridge. He just has to prepare them and put them in the oven or the microwave or whatever it is. Environmental design is massive. You've only got you've only got a finite amount of willpower or discipline. And if we look at someone like Barack Obama, if we look at someone like Bill Gates, when you hear them speak, oftentimes they will say, well, I wear the same things every day. And it's not because they just love black t-shirts and jeans or whatever it may be. It is because they have so many decisions to make in a day that the least amount of decisions possible over things which don't really matter, the better. So rather than now think about like, oh shit, should I wear this or should I wear that? Should I wear this or should I wear that? They're making big decisions in their business, in their company. In terms of Barack Obama's case, the world, right? And therefore, they didn't want to make decisions about every little thing. And one of the ways to, eliminate decision fatigue is to make sure that your environment is set up for success, just like we did with Chris here. Last one. I know I said 10 minutes, nearly 20, but hey, I'm enjoying myself and hopefully you're getting a ton of value from this. Long form content is the one, man. I really do believe that. Okay, so last pillar, as you can see from this consistency paradigm just here. And we have accountability and feedback loops. So something which is so key inside 23 Lean is accountability, holding you to a higher standard than you're currently holding yourself. And in fact, it's one of our 4 key core pillars of success, one of them being customization. So the plan in which we give you literally has to work for you and you only. Everything is built from the ground up, no cookie cutter, random bullshit generic templates. That's not what I'm about. Number 2 is support, to make sure that you know exactly what to do and when, you know exactly what your next steps are, and you're supported throughout doing so. Across the occasional wobbles or not knowing what to do or confusion, you're supported. Number 3, and this is where this one comes in, the accountability. So hold you to a higher standard than you're currently holding yourself. How many times have you tried to nail this fitness thing? How many times has that flopped? And part of the reason is because you've never had anyone to hold your feet to the fire, to hold you to a higher level of accountability and be like, oi, have you done 1, 2, 3 things that you said you were going to do? Oh shit, no, I haven't. Great. Well, I thought you said you want them. Go and do them. Because it's very easy to move yourself into action when you're in pain, when you're fat, when you're unhealthy, when you stepped on the scales and you don't like to see the number in which it's now given you, when you can't fit into your favorite pair of jeans, whatever it now may be. But it's very hard to cultivate the amount of consistency needed without the accountability long after the feelings of wanting to do so have now left you. All right. And then lastly, we have education to make sure that you are part, I spelled education wrong, of the 97%, sorry, you are not part of the 97% who basically fail fat loss plans. If you do just a quick Google research and be like, what are the stats on successful weight loss over the course of time? 97% failure rate. Those are absolutely grim stats, facts, and figures. So we want to be part of the 3%, and I'm really proud to say that 23 Lean clients are, because we don't get them just a result for a fancy before and after picture. We literally get them a result for life. But right now, we're literally just talking about how important this piece is, this accountability piece. All right, so let's dive straight in. Cool. Just to show you as well, my man Michael. Now Michael, again, he kind of knew what to do. He kind of understood the principles of weight training and nutrition, but nothing was really going right until he had that accountability. And that accountability literally looked like checking in with me on a week-to-week basis, filling out a form whereby I know exactly where he's at in terms of his progress pictures, in terms of his weight, in terms of his subjective feedback, in terms of his compliance to the plan, in terms of how hungry he felt, in terms of how many hours of sleep he got, in terms of how his training's gone. And basically, I'm able to every single week tweak the plan so he's exactly where he needs to be and why, versus saying that he wants the result, being really motivated for 2 weeks, having no accountability, falling off track and getting nowhere fast. What is the point in that? So this is Michael, and as you can see, we not only dropped body fat, we literally gained muscle in the process as well, transformed his physique in under 90 days. And again, that accountability piece is so key. And the funny thing about accountability is, like, it needs to be someone who is aloof from you and your goals, and not your loved ones. Because it's very easy for a partner, a friend, a mum or dad to be like, hey, you look good, or to enable you from bullshit behavior. Like if you skip the gym and you constantly slip up on your food, to be like, don't worry, love yourself and all the rest. It's like, no, you need someone to be like, oi, do you know what? Like, you're not putting in the work. You're not doing what you said you were going to do. And I'm holding you to account because that's what you paid me for. So oftentimes when you pay money and when you're actually invested into someone else, right, who's now going to be able to oversee things from an impartial pair of eyes, they're going to allow you to make sure that you get the results in which you want, rather than just a family member or a friend, like I say, who's just going to enable you to continue along, behaviors which don't allow you to be consistent. So team, like, no matter what you're doing right now, no matter what the plan is, like, I'm sure you'd agree, if you cannot be consistent with it, you ain't going to get very fast. And hopefully this little mind map has enabled you to really understand where you might be going wrong in your own journey and where you might be kind of failing in terms of your levels of consistency. Now, just before I close off, a couple of things. Number one, if you are a fast mover, if you feel like, right, Sharif, you're the man to help me be consistent, you are the man to help me get fantastic results, just like you've seen some of our guys and gals inside 23 Lean, and I want that level of consistency so I can get those results, you can go ahead and click the button below and apply for a one-to-one meeting with myself, whereby we'll literally go back and forth. I'll understand exactly where you're at right now, just in terms of your levels of consistency, in terms of what you're struggling with right now, in terms of just where things are at. From there, we'll have a little think about, okay, cool. So like best case scenario, what does that now look like for you? What's the ideal scenario across a 90-day or 6-month period? How does that look for you? And then come up with a game plan, which either you then go away and implement yourself without my help, no hard feelings, that's fine. Or you realize that actually I'm a fast mover, I want to get shit done, and I want you to be my corner and able to facilitate that, and I'll take out all the guesswork. You just got to basically lift the weight and eat the food. I can't do that for you, but other than that, everything else is covered. Or if you are still a little bit kind of unsure about, which pathway of fat loss to go down, which we've been talking about recently, go ahead and take the SL Lean Fat Loss Quiz, which is basically going to ask you a few questions just in terms of your own preferences, and that's going to point you in the right direction of like, okay, cool, should be the way in which you're going to burn fat more effectively based on your personality, based on your schedule, based on your preferences, so that you can cultivate the amount of consistency needed in which we're going to have in order for you to get fantastic results. So either way, you're going to be moving forward. Team, hopefully this was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.